Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to everyone in America. Welcome to the Grand Am Premier Series from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most famous speedways in the world. Playing host here to the Daytona Prototypes and the Ford Mustangs. We're going to go straight away and run through your grid. We'll start with the Daytona Prototype classes, and Anthony Rossley is setting the point with a time of 1 minute 32.761. Joao Pino will line up alongside him in row number 1, about a half-tenth behind. Row number 2, Sean Lees and David Ward. Row number 3, Anna Karistoff and Scott Ford. Row number 4 is Sergei Solotov and Jason Dunnington. Row number 5 is Glenn Sidman and Antonio A. In row number 6 is Pierre Bordeaux and Tom Kirk. Row number 7 is Wolfgang Wildener and William Green. And then the last of the DP drivers is Rodrigo Masson in the 15th position. Then moving over to your Ford Mustang class, Dave Geeling setting the fastest time, 1 minute 56.454. Evan Maillard in the second position. Frank Cobanetto in third, Jonathan Fuller in fourth, Stefan Overgaard in fifth, Chuck Johnson in sixth, Carl Young seventh, Kevin Parrish in eighth, Roman Walter in ninth, and then bringing up the rear, Darren W. Jump. I'd like to welcome my co-commentator for today, Doyle Johnson. Doyle, we were here just a couple of months ago doing 500 miles, but for these drivers today, they've got themselves a very different but just as difficult set of challenges.
Absolutely will. You've got the situation where you've got the two different types of cars. You've got one that is a whole lot faster than the other one on the track, and a very tight, very narrow track, very technical. It's a very short track, so we're going to see constant lap traffic, which is going to pose an extreme challenge, especially for the DP drivers today.
And we are running on the bike light there. You're just seeing the rear of the field going through turns number 3 and 4. They pop onto the banking just for a couple of seconds before they flick it all the way to the left through turn number 5. You see there the exit slip road of the oval track just as they go past. And then they will come down onto turn number 6, 7, 8 and 9. This always reminds me of the old Phoenix Formula 1 track, Doyle.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's going to be an interesting race today, especially since, I think Daytona is always a challenge, and today it's going to be no different. And it's kind of interesting what we see in our field. We see some familiar names from last week's race, so it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up, this week on a much different track.
And while we move Doyle Johnson from Florida over to Indiana, one driver who you will realise isn't here is Blake Townend. Blake was today at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in the United Kingdom, racing on what I can only classify as a gaming competition called Red Bull. He had some good runs, got himself through to the semi-finals, but I tell you what, if any of those guys ever tried to challenge Blake in a real simulator, not some pathetic Xbox game, I'm sure he would have done it a lot better. You see there the pace car just making its way towards the end of the lap right now. He's going to make that turn down towards pit lane in just a matter of moments time, and you see the field will then be put under the command of Anthony Rossley in the number 3 machine. And as he does so, the pace car comes in. You've got a nice stacked up field there. Rossley, Bolt, and the Grand Am Premier Series from Indianapolis is green.
An excellent start up front by both the leader of the Mustangs, the leader of the DP, so we'll see how that plays out. Looks like they're spreading out nice and early, probably trying to avoid those first few lap accidents that you tend to have on a tight track like this.
Yeah, and you saw David Ward there. He was trying to work on the outside of the number 10 of Sean Lees in the battle for the 3rd position earlier on. Wasn't able to get the job done. It looks as though the top few Mustangs have all got themselves through, as have all of the Daytona prototypes. So they're working their way now down into turn 7 for the first time. Anthony Rossi's your race leader. We have got a crash on turn number 3. There is Carl Young and Roman Walter involved there. Both of those are Mustang drivers towards the rear of the field. They started in 22nd and 24th overall, and they haven't lost many positions, but they have lost themselves a ton of time.
Yeah, and we thought, I mean, I think we were very lucky that we didn't see more of that early on in the race. It looks like we also have a driver with connection issues, but the Ford Mustang drivers, they spaced out nice and early, and we're seeing kind of what we saw last week. Of course, Gillick and Maillard right at the start, trying to set the pace for everybody else.
So you see Andy Kersthoff putting a bit of pressure onto David Ward as they complete lap number 1. This will be the battle for the 4th position. As they come across the line for the first time, we'll be racing, I forgot to mention this earlier, for 90 minutes here today. 1.5 hours. Anthony Rossley is your race leader in the Daytona Prototype class, with João Penna in 2nd, Sean Lees in 3rd, David Ward in 4th, and Andy Kersthoff running out your top 5. And then in the Mustang division, it is Geeling from Maillard, from Convertino and Fuller, and then Overgaard. I tell you what, these first couple of corners, it is a real momentum gainer. As she then come on, and she got a slow car. That was Sergei Solotov almost spinning that car. Has been very slow in the exit, and allowing Jason Dunnington to get right to the rear of him in the battle for the 7th position. You will see some of these drivers really closing up early on in the start of this race, but once they come towards traffic, Doyle, this is where things are going to become very difficult, because the Mustangs not only are a lot slower than the Daytona prototypes, they can't take the corners with as much speed as Andy Kersthoff's getting very sideways, and that is going to allow Scott Ford, as they come underneath the bridge, to put a bit of pressure on side by side, but it looks as though Kersthoff is going to have to yield the position to move him out of the top 5 in to the 6th position.
Yeah, that was a great move right there, and like you said, that you're going to be coming up on lap traffic that do not brake as well, do not take the corners and speed as well, and this is a very narrow racetrack. So unlike last week where you can just blow by on the straightaways and through the corners, there's going to have to be a lot of serious thought to keep from crashing out on the lap traffic today. And
you saw that Dave Geeling and Evan Maillard, they're having themselves a nice battle in the battle for the top 2 positions in the Mustang class. We saw this last week at the Glen, the week before at Road America. These two drivers are very, very close on lap times, and it is going to be who can make the least mistakes on this racetrack, and also who can be the luckiest when it comes up to this lap traffic. And I can tell you right now that Anthony Rossley, your race leader, is already a full 40 seconds now ahead of the Mustang drivers, so they're going to come up towards lap traffic very quickly. The bit of comparison, Anthony Rossley's last lap time, a 1 minute 33.429, compare that to Dave Geeling, a 1 minute 57.421, so you can do the maths, and they're going to get very, very busy this racetrack very soon.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to keep our eye on that, because it's going to be interesting to see just exactly how they navigate that traffic and how the Mustang drivers, because once again they've got a lot of a challenge, because they have to drive in the rearview mirror when they get the call that they're coming up on the leaders. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it on this track.
Just saw there that Sergei Solotov is putting a lot of pressure on Andy Kersthoff. This is now the battle for the 6th position on the racetrack. After Kersthoff got sideways, he's got sideways again. That allows Solotov to get past him. I was just about to say that it looked as though Andy Kersthoff might have heated up his tyres too early on. And once you do that in these cars, you rely so much on the grip coming from those tyres that you need to really, really keep this move. As David Ward also is going backwards in a hurry. He has lost himself a position to Scott Ford in the battle for what was his 3rd position. He's also lost, I believe, a battle to position to Sean Lees as well. So David Ward is all the way back into 5th, and now under humongous pressure from Sergei Solotov, and you've got yourself a huge train from 4th, pretty much all the way back into the 10th position, which is being occupied at the moment by Pierre Bordeaux. Just give you an update on David Ward, driving in the number 8 pink machine. He just lost it on the final corner there. As you come onto the banking, that track always falls away just a little bit out of turn number 16, and he just put power down a little bit too early. And that always reminds me a little bit of Daytona when you come onto the banking. Obviously, you haven't got the huge change as you come on with the banking, but you still have to make sure you put the power down in the right position, just like you have to do at turn 6 of Daytona.
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky corner because there's a nice transition there. And yeah, and like you said, if you put the power down too soon, you're going to get the tires are going to get loose, and you're going to be having a hard time transitioning to the banking. So you have to kind of do that, nice and steady. And then once you get on the bank, you can of course hammer down. But before that, it can be a little tricky.
So there you see, we're on board of Anthony Rossley now. He's having to be very careful as he starts to negotiate that Mustang traffic, and this is the last thing you want to see, as you're seeing it on your screens now. Rossley, two cars going too wide ahead of him, and he really is going to have to try and use the exit here to try and pass as many of them as possible from the run out of turn number 4, sweeping it to the left hand side into turn 5. Beautiful driving there by Rossley, as he's now going to be able to get himself a huge advantage, because João Pinot behind him is going to have to try and clear them at a much more difficult part of the racetrack. In fact, he lost a little bit of time there as he went into turn number 6, having to use a lot of the curb, as then he bounced it right into turn number 7 and 8. And a little bit further back, you see all going on now as the field are catching the Mustangs for the first time. And this is for these drivers probably the first time that they're going to have to figure out how not only their car but their competitor's car works as they're trying to negotiate their traffic. A lot of these cars, they're going to be very good when they're running their own optimal racing line, but once they get offline, having to take some wider corner entries, get on the power a little bit later, it really does start showing who has got the best race car underneath them. Sean Lees there is just getting himself a bit past him in the Mustang traffic. A huge dive down the inside there by Scott Ford, as he does exactly the same. In fact, Scott Ford closes dramatically there as you got the Mustang train on the outside. You have the Daytona Prototype train on the inside. And this is really getting interesting, as Sean Lee's just spinning it a little bit as he comes into the final corner. This will allow Scott Ford to close up a little bit further, and behind them, that Mustang DP train really is getting busy now, as Andy Keresov just gets past a ton of the Mustangs behind him. Same thing with Glenn Sidman and David Ward both getting past. Oof, I need to take a breath after that one.
Yeah, that's where you expect to see a lot of passing done. Once they get out on that banking, once they get out on that straightaway, that's a good, clean place to pass. And unlike you see some of the other drivers like Anthony Roselli, who is a master at getting through that Mustang traffic in the twisties, getting in and out, diving in between cars, and doing it fairly safely. But not every driver is able to do that. So you'll see a lot of passing on the straights, as you should.
And Chuck Johnson there in the number 13 machine, he had to slow all the way down to 25 miles an hour, holding literally the inside line of turn number 4, just to allow the Daytona Prototype ahead of him get round. And that is the worst place you ever want to have traffic trying to overtake you, down into turn number 4. If it's one car, it's very difficult to make the pass. However, Chuck Johnson there losing out big time. David Ward lost it again in turn number 4 that previous lap. He is now falling back into the 9th position. I was talking to David earlier on today. He was very angry after his race yesterday in the Formula 120 at Watkins Glen, being involved in a huge wreck in on lap number 2. And Doyle, some of these drivers have already raced 2 hours this weekend. They're doing another 90 minutes today. At some point, that fatigue is really going to start setting in for these drivers, because not only have they had to adapt their car to 2 different types of racetrack, Glenn's always very fast and physical. This is very technically difficult, and you really need to have that mental capacity all race long.
Yeah, and the fatigue is a big factor. Not only on your body from sitting there doing the race, but on your eyes looking at the computer screen. And over time, if you're there too long, you tend to kind of zone out a little bit. So different drivers.
Something happened at the last corner. I'm not quite sure. We'll get ourselves a replay of that, but huge train on the front straightaway, and the Riley just dived in at the very last second. Got himself a little bit of a tap there with the Mustangs. I don't think anything happened though. I think that was William Green in the number 23 machine, and got a pass in turn number 1 as well at the same time. Things are always hot up on this racetrack, and you see Kevin Parrish, Frank Contino and Jonathan Phillip, they are separated by less than 4 car lengths, as Kevin Parrish just managed to gain a position which will put him up into 3rd in class.
this is kind of a similar story to what we saw last week too. Same drivers kind of putting a charge on, and we'll see how it plays out for the rest of the race. But Dave Gillick still dominating as far as the Mustangs are concerned, and Anthony Rosselli a good 2 seconds ahead of Jose Pino, who was fortunate enough last week to end up exactly where he is right now. So Anthony Rosselli still dominating as far as this series is concerned.
Right, you're riding on board of the number 9 machine of Andy Karistoff in that Radicals number 9 machine. And as he comes down into turn number 1, closing down on Sergei Solotov in the number 15. That is the battle for the 5th position. Karistoff lost himself a couple of positions early on in this race, which has put him on the back foot a little bit, but he's trying now to make a bit of a recovery after that. And
a little spin right there.
And that was Scott Ford.
Spinning.
Yeah, in the number 18 car, manages to get it pointing in the right direction again. And thankfully for him, that is possibly the best place you could spin that car, just for the fact that there is like so much width on the track. You've got what is the oval access road, and it's probably 6-7 wide there, so he's very lucky to do that at that position. But on the flip side, this is probably the fastest part of the racetrack, and he's lost himself a barrel over time and fallen behind Andy Karistoff, which puts him essentially into the 7th position.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't get damaged. It's just basically a self-spin, so he'll be back in the race, and there's plenty of race left for him to make up those positions. So you were right. He was very fortunate that was a spot that he managed to spin. Yeah,
and you just saw it on your replay there. Just one of those slow spins that you always think you are going to catch, but he always just gets beyond the point of no return. Going to cost him, and also he's got to be careful on those tyres on the next couple of laps or so. But he can always recover from that, and we've still got ourselves a lot of racing here to go at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's not forget as well that this is the 3rd and final round of the North American Endurance Championship. So these drivers here today, they're not only racing for the Grand Am Premier Series overall prizes, but also the prizes for the North American Endurance Championship as well. So these drivers are keeping that on their mind as they come to the final couple of laps. Anthony Rosselli is so good on the, just having a look, sorry there, Doyle. He's so good there on the power, getting off these corners and really holding his lines with the Mustangs.
Yeah, and, he's definitely a great driver. Really got a lot of finesse behind the wheel of that car. It's not as easy as it looks, especially in the Mustangs. They don't tend to hold the track very well, so you got to have a good setup, and you really have to be good with the throttle and the brakes. Otherwise, you're going to swap ends on these cars.
Sorry to interrupt. It looks as though there's been a little bit of an issue with the 2 leading Mustangs. I think that was Evan Maillard was getting a bit of a dive down the inside there by one of the Daytona prototypes. That was Wolfgang Waldenhol, who then also dived down the inside of Dave Geeling with not much notice, and I think that caused a little bit of anger between those top 2 Mustang drivers. Andy Karistoff is closing a bit more on Sergei Solotov in that battle for the 5th position. Karistoff's last lap won the 38.327. Pretty much nothing in it, just a 17 1,000ths of a second advantage on that lap to Solotov. Out front, however, Anthony Rosselli is your race leader. Charles Pino, 1.7 seconds behind. He can still see Rosselli, which, judging by Rosselli's performance last week at Watkins Glen, is no mean feat there by Charles Pino. Sean Lee's in 3rd, Solotov in 4th, Karistoff in 5th. Then in your Mustang class, it is Dave Geeling, Aaron Maillard, Kevin Parrish, Frank Covenetto, and Jonathan Fuller running out your top 5.
Yeah, and João Pinot has actually made up time since the last time. Oh.
So we've got David Ward, we've got ourselves Jason Dunnington, and Darren Jump. Oh, nose to tail there. David Ward is he's possibly going to try and make it 3 wide as they come out of turn number 6 and 7. And it looked as though the Mustang, he was holding his own line, but it was so difficult for anyone to get past that both Dunnington and Ward had to get right out of the gas. And that not only cost them time in their battle between themselves, but also dropped him by about a whole 2 seconds behind Scott Ford, who's sat in the 6th position. So those guys have got themselves a lot of work to do now if they want to try and make up a bit of time. And Dunnington, in fact, having a couple more issues as he's catching the Mustangs at all the wrong places at the moment. And for these drivers, after they have themselves a bad lap stuck behind traffic, it really does get them out of that comfort zone, and then they start making those silly mistakes where they will just try and dive down the inside perhaps a little bit too early, not really showing too much attention to where they're going to plant their car in relation to the other class, and that's often where a lot of these big incidents always happen.
Yeah, and you saw when they passed right there, it was kind of a bad spot for the Mustang too, because that's kind of a slip corner right there, and the Mustang almost got into the wall trying to get out of the way. So, you know, you see a lot of incidents there when you're passing in the corners like that.
Jalapeno. We've got ourselves a moment where with Jason White down into turn number 1. We'll get ourselves a replay of that on your screen momentarily. So that's Jason Dunnington down into turn number 1. And just going to look back and see what happened to him. But,
almost in the back of that Mustang right there.
Yeah. And you see David Ward is very close once again. In fact, David Ward
is going to take advantage of that. Absolutely good pass by David Ward.
Yeah. And what it was there by Ward is he just, as the Mustang was on the left-hand side, Dunnington was almost pinned in behind him. Ward was just able to dive down the inside of both those drivers, make the pass. And that's some good tactical driving there by Ward. But now he's got to hope that he doesn't have the same disadvantage in a couple of laps' time. Jalapeno, by the way, has closed right up to the rear of Anthony Rosseling. The gap is less than half a second as they're coming through turn number 4 and now down the little straightaway into turn number 5. That fast sweeping left-hander as they'll bring it down into turn number 6, the second biggest braking zone on the racetrack. And that was some good passing there by Ward. But, oh no, Jalapeno just going a little bit wide. That's going to cost him a tenth or so. But Pinot is charging at the moment, and that number 4 car has really come up to form in these last couple of races.
Yeah, and that's definitely a contrast to what we saw last week. After last week, he's definitely putting on the charge. He has no intention of letting Anthony Rosselli get away from him like he did last week. You're seeing a similar thing happen in Dave Gillick and Evan Mallard. Dave Gillick, by this time last week, had pulled away, but Evan Mallard's going to have none of that. He's staying right up there.
And after being overtaken by David Ward, just half a lap or so, Dunnington lit the tyres up in turn number 16 pretty big time, and that has really affected his grip on the racecourse for the first part of this lap. The number 17 machine of Antonio Ray just losing in position there to Willem Green as the number 17 car of Antonio going very long into turn number 16. Losing that position, and that is for 11th and 12th overall in this race. Just to give you an update, we only have one retirement so far, and that is Tom Kirk in the number 21 car, who scored as 7 laps down.
As you mentioned earlier about Jason Dunnington, if you remember last week, Will, he struggled quite a bit. A lot of spins, a lot of damage to his race car, so see if he can do a little better this week. But he's starting to show signs of either fatigue or you know, something's happening with him. He's not really 100% in control of his race car today.
Yeah, it looked as though Dunnington last week, he had a very bad day, let's just be honest with that. He got involved in a couple of incidents with the Mustang drivers. His car very hard to drive, and it looked as though his tyres were going off very early in that first stint. And that could be the case here today. And just having a quick eye, we noticed that some of these drivers, in fact, will try and go on board with one of them this lap as they do so. Turn number 16, the final corner on the racetrack. These drivers are being a little bit cheeky and cutting a little bit of the track here. Just keep an eye on that. It's not really come to my attention too much, but you can gain yourself a little bit of time by doing that. And it just looks as though what some of these drivers are doing is just diving down the inside of those red cones, which separates the track from what should be, I don't know, escape road or something. But some of these drivers are using that to gain themselves a couple of tenths of a second here and there. Just having a look to see the best driver to give it an example of. But we'll have a look at Sean Lees in the number 10 machine. He's coming down into the final couple of corners now. And he stays just to the right-hand side just going slightly over those curves. Sergei Solotov's taking a lot more of that, but really, some of these drivers are on the ragged edge of what they could be classified as cutting the course with. And Doyle, it's one of those things, at the end of the day, if the race control's not going to penalise it, then we've seen it so often in many forms of motorsports, you know, you take as many advantages and liberties as possible, but is this something that you think that the race control should be having a look at a little bit closer next time these cars come here?
I think so. That was not intended to be the racing surface today. So the fact that for some reason race control is allowing that to happen, and some of the drivers are catching on to that, you know, has made it part of the race today. But you know, I think that's something that they ought to be looking at, is keeping the drivers on the track as intended.
And I mean, I remember in the Formula 1 days, they got very strict on that a couple of years back. Used to have drivers pretty much going all the way around the track wherever possible, using any little bit of asphalt. Just having a look at Andy Kerstov in the number 9 car. He is looking as though he's having a better second part of this stint. We're about 20-ish minutes into this race now. And Kerstov looks as though he's putting the pressure back on to Sergei Solotov. In fact, he's going to get very close there, as Solotov got backed up a little bit by Roman Walter, currently sat second from last in the Mustang class. But you see there, nice 3-car train now with Scott Ford in the rear, Andy Kerstov in the middle, Sergei Solotov at the front. We'll have a look at this turn 16 cutting malarkey then, as all 3 of them comes in. Do any of them do it this time? Kerstov just a little bit there, and Scott Ford tried to take a little bit too much. And what that meant is he got sideways and he's lost himself a full second and a half.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's what happens when you get a little too aggressive when you're entering onto the actual racing surface there for the oval. So you've got to be really careful how you do your braking and your throttle right there.
So we are currently working about 20, let's have a look at the clock, about 22 minutes into this race now. David Ward has had himself a hard day, currently 42 seconds behind the race leader in the number 8 machine. Looking as though he's catching Scott Ford though. He fell back from the rear of that 3-car train from 4th, 5th and 6th, and looks as though that pink car, the number 8 car, we've seen him a lot on Glacier TV over the last couple of months. Looks as though he is a man now on a mission to try and gain up a bit of time.
And we see that a lot with David Ward. He definitely he can fall back. He's a guy that is never out of the race until the last lap. So he'll battle and he actually seems to ride better as an underdog than he does up front. So she's some good racing from David Ward.
Let's flick back over to the Mustang division momentarily. Dave Geelink is still your race leader, but Evan Maillard is closed down to less than a second in second position, as not only is it the Daytona prototype drivers who lose momentum as these fields start coming back together, it's also the Mustang drivers. And here, it looks like Maillard has got himself right back into the hump, and he is less than 3 car lengths behind as they come down into turn number 5. We're on board with Maillard now, and it looks as though Maillard is doing a sterling job there as they're going to break it down now into turn 6.
Yeah, and you have to remember, this track with the Mustangs, like I mentioned before, the braking and the acceleration and the steering in the corners, there's so many tight corners here that the Mustangs really don't get up to speed. So, you know, it's very technical, and that's why I think you're seeing Evan Maillard having a chance to stay with David Geelink, because there's really no way he can open his car up. So in this case, it's just a matter of who's the more technical driver in the twisties, and it looks like Evan Maillard is doing a great job today.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this battle just for a moment. And it's interesting to see how Geelink can pull out a little bit of time at certain points on the racetrack, but then it comes all back to Maillard later on. I think it's almost more towards the end of the lap, which you see approaching, I believe that is turn number 12 now they just come out of. But Evan Maillard really is closest to come up the final corner, and that is where you're going to need a momentum, and they've got the Riley coming up behind them of Wolfgang Waldenhöhe. This could play into things. It looks like Waldenhöhe is going to catch them right at the slowest part of this racetrack once again. Maillard is less than 2 car lengths behind as they come past the start-finish line, but the important thing is that you can't really dive down the inside in these cars because they're only going at 123 miles an hour and they're going to slow down to about 70. They've not really got huge speed slowing down zones because they're only just losing 50 miles an hour, but they need a lot of time to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's not like the DPs. These cars, you have to be very, very careful on the brakes. If you too much brake, and these cars tend to like to swap ends on you. So it's all about car control today, especially in the track as technical as this one.
At turn number 4, we're not talking about the exit of turn 4 itself. The apex is very difficult, that slow 180-degree corner. But then as you come off, you hit that banking, and it's only 12 degrees of banking, but it's still very, it unsettles the car as you come onto it, and you really do need that grip from that run from turn 4 down to turn 6, especially in the DP cars, because you can gain yourself a lot of momentum then into that braking zone through turn number 6. You see there, a big split. I believe that was Sean Lee's in the 3rd position in the number 10 car. That was some very, very brave driving by him as he's now coming down into turn number 10. And some of these DP drivers, they know that if they just sit behind these Mustangs for too long, they're going to come under pressure. And Sean Lee's got himself a 6-second gap over Sergei Solitov behind. But ahead of him, he's got Charles Pino a full 32 seconds ahead.
Yeah, and like you said, you got to be very careful how you pass them. And with the Mustangs, one of the things to remember is they're 90% mechanical grip on here. They're not like the DPs who are working with downforce and other aspects. You just have that big rear wing, and then you've got front splitter. But if you're not moving at speed, those do absolutely nothing for the car. So it is all mechanical grip, and they have to manipulate that car around there very carefully. Unlike the DPs, where they just push on the gas and the car gets pushed down.
Just a moment ago, we saw Andy. You didn't see it on your screens, but Andy Kersthoff has managed to get himself past Sergei Solitov and also past Scott Ford's off position. So Andy K is now up into the 5th position. But Maillard is still pounding that pressure on Dave Geelinck. Last week we saw that after the sequence of pit stops, Geelinck was able to drive away into the distance. But today, it looks like that number 2 car of Maillard is a lot stronger early on in the race.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big factor. I mean, he has not let off. Last week Dave Geelinck had some breathing room. Today, no such luck. Evan Mallard keeping the pressure on the entire time so far for the race.
So we've just approached 1/3 distance here at the Grand Am Premier Series from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here on Glacier TV, Anthony Rossley is still your race leader. The gap between himself and João Pino is back up now to 3.1 seconds as Pino has lost himself a little bit of time in the last couple of laps behind traffic. Sean Lee sat in the 3rd position, Andy Kersthoff in 4th, Sergei Solitov in 5th, Scott Ford in 6th, David Ward in 7th, Jason Dunnington in 8th, Rodrigo Masson in 9th, and in fact Jason Dunnington there was very close to running over one of the Mustangs, and Glenn Tidman is running out your top 10 in the Riley class. And then in the Ford Mustang division, it is Dave Geelinck, your race leader, Evan Maillard right behind him in 2nd, Kevin Parrish in 3rd, Frank Covianetto in 4th, Jonathan Feddo in 5th, Chuck Johnson in 6th, Stefan Overgaard in 7th, Darren Jump in 8th, Raymond Walter in 9th, and Carl Young rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, and in the Mustang division, it's there's not a whole lot of racing going on at the moment. They're spread out quite a bit between 1st and 21st place there. It's kind of a little disappointing that we don't see a little more on track like we did last week, but it's still kind of early, so we'll see what happens in the round of pits if that brings some people together and brings out some more racing.
Yeah, and we have to say, Kevin Parrish really is our biggest mover in the race so far, gaining 5 positions in the Mustang division. You can see it just running across the bottom of your screen momentarily. Kevin Parrish driving for Club Indiana, one of the Mustang drivers here today. He is a lap behind the Riley leader, but doing a great job, currently sat in the 3rd position. His last lap, a 2 minutes, 0.5 seconds.
Yeah, and Kevin Parrish is actually a lap down to Dave Geelinck and Evan Maillard. So it's our next best race is a whole lap behind the others. So obviously this track proven to be quite challenging for most of the Mustang drivers, and that is as it should be, because this is a difficult track.
And as we approach, as we've now passed the half-hour mark, this is a time when the pit window will open. So these drivers, some of them might choose to come in early, try and get themselves a little bit of clean air in comparison to some of these other. Well, the phrase clean air and this course doesn't really go hand in hand. David Ward is catching Scott Ford in the battle for the 6th position. He's closed that gap now. And sorry, we've got ourselves, Evan Maillard has actually been able to overtake Dave Geeling too wide. You just saw it there. Maillard up to 1st position in the Mustang class. Just as I was talking about Ward, it was all going on with Maillard. And now Geeling is going to try and get himself right up to the rear of him, coming out into the final corner. See whether he can try and make a move. You see both those Mustangs there are really going inside those cones. But if one of them doesn't do it, then he's going to be on the back foot and the other driver will have the opportunity to overtake. So it's almost as though, well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to have to do the same.
Yeah, they have no choice. If the driver that's in the front cuts those cones, they're going to have to cut them too. Otherwise, they're just going to lose an advantage. But this is great racing up front by these two in the Mustangs. Definitely quite a bit different from last week. So it's, congratulations to Evan Maillard to pull through without a pit stop, just get past David Gelink. And, of course, David Gelink is going to fight back the entire time. He's not giving him an inch.
In fact, Geeling's got himself, a bit of an opening there. As I came out of turn 4, you saw that Maillard had to go a bit wide coming off. And now they're going to get past, I believe that was passed by Pierre Bourdon and then William Green. Geeling is going to try and use all his advantage. In fact, he's looking down back to the inside of turn number 7. Not really going to be able to make a move there because these cars, they all have to be on the brakes very early on. And that's going to give Maillard just a couple of car lengths of breathing space in the next couple of corners.
Well, he thought maybe he had an opportunity because Maillard kind of got off the track there. It was really hard on the rumble strip, so he had an opportunity there, but he just could not take advantage.
You just saw Pierre Bourdon, we'll get a replay of this momentarily. Pierre Bourdon in the number 20 machine, all the way off track at turn, I believe that was turn number, towards turn 6. Looked as though he just lost suspension on his car because that car, coming out of turn 5, he'd overtaken Maillard and just lost suspension, drove straight into the wall. We saw this last week. I can't remember who it was with, but I don't know. It must have been a suspension failure there for Bourdon because he's now sat down in pit lane.
He actually got a little bit wide on that corner during the turn and got into the grass, and for some reason he wasn't able to get around the turn and just, so it's like he nailed the gas just straight into the grass into the wall. It was definitely bizarre.
I mean, I've been off the grass many times at Indy. That's normally coming out of pit lane. In fact, it's a very similar point to this. But, I mean, normally if you go on the grass, the car wants to spin around for you. And he could have tried to bring it onto the oval and then cut it back in. As we've got the leader once again in the Mustang division, Maillard and Geeling very close together as they come out of the turn number 3 and 4. And Anthony Rossley has crashed from the race lead of the Daytona Prototype division. They were going 3 wide pretty much. Rossley trying to pick his way through, and Rossley just getting himself spun around and then just whacked as he tried to turn it over. João Pinot wrecks out as well.
Oh yeah, that was exactly what we talked about. That spot where they're entering the oval, how tricky that is, and it looks like he just got on the gas too early, lost control, and definitely spun the car. And then other people, as he enters to try to get off the track, tragedy ensues. He picks up another car.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, with Rossley, it looked as though it was almost at a point that he could have tried to really turn it back around. But then João Pinot was just looking down to the inside. He saw the gap, he saw the opening. He didn't expect, I don't think, Rossley to just go forward. In fact, I had to give the blame there to Rossley, because if he just stayed there, allow Pinot to go past, there wasn't many cars behind, he would have been able to, just turn the car around afterwards. But it almost looked as though Rossley was either trying to go forward far enough so that Pinot could keep his racing line, or, I don't know, it just looked as though Rossley, though, just bad timing by him, he turned upside down on his roof. Pinot's got himself substantial damage to his race car, but has tried to continue on. and that really has hurt João Pino's. He's down pit lane, going to try and get some repairs to his race car. He is in the pit window, but he really is going to try now and just get that car back out onto the racetrack and see whether he can gain any positions. And I was about to say that every race that Pino's in, he manages to gain a position, and he started second in this race. He was almost gifted the race lead, as Andy Kerstov has really at the same time got Sergei Solotov right behind him.
Well, that was just interesting too. That's just frustration on Anthony Rosselli's part, because technically he should have stayed on where he was. He was not aware of the drivers around him, probably due to frustration. And when he went forward, João Pino had nowhere to go. And now he also on the track, you've got Anthony Rosselli somehow angry at the Mustang drivers, trying to put the blame on them for his spin. So I'm not sure what's going on there. He's very frustrated at this point.
Well, you have to go all the way back to turn 2 and turn 3. You had a number of Mustangs going very slowly all the way on the racetrack. You know, they were too wide. Mustangs trying to get outweigh Mustangs, with DPs trying to get into the mix of it as well. I mean, I could understand Rosselli's frustration as he was losing a lot of time, and then it looked as though in his hand he just tried to get on the throttle a little bit too early. But we always talk about, when you spin the car, the safest thing you can do is to stay still until all the other cars have gone past you. Because if you're going to make a judgment, you do not know whether the other driver is going to be able to react to that judgment. And in this case, what it's done is really costed a number of drivers the opportunity to get some good finishes. João Pino is back out onto the racetrack, and having a look at the front of his car, it really is a little bit crumpled at the front, but whether or not he's got the grip will be the key thing. And I think while Pino's in his own clean air, that should be okay for him, but when he comes up and around the Mustangs, he's going to lose himself a lot of time.
Well, like we talked about earlier, and we've talked about every time in this series, it really is up to the DP drivers to be very aware of the Mustangs on the way they have to drive. And that's what makes this series so challenging, is because it's not just DP against DP running around the track. It's a constant situation where you must be aware of the drivers around you. And in this case, his frustration of running into the Mustangs, well, may be justified, but the Mustangs have a right to race, and they're going to clog up the track. I mean, that's just part of racing.
And it really does look as though that Rossi has managed to borrow Audi's pit crew from the Le Mans 24 Hours. He managed to get that car back pointing in the right direction, into pit lane, top it up with some race gas, bottom a bit back into the right direction, and get it back onto the track without losing a lap. And
both drivers are back out on the track without losing a lap.
And Rob Sutherland in the background, he's going on about how he gives me all the best line. I was talking about Audi pit crews weeks ago, so Sutherland, I know you can hear me, shut up.
And that's actually kind of amazing. So now what we've got is that for the viewers is actually going to be a blessing, because now you've got Anthony Rosselli and João Pino who have to make their way back up through the track and through all these drivers. So now, once again, are they going to be able to do that? Do they have enough race left? And can they keep it together after that nerve-jarring incident there and get themselves back up to win the race?
Yeah, and Rosselli is sat in his 7th position. It doesn't look as though he's got himself too much substantial damage to that race car. Almost looks as though it actually just clean flips over without crumpling the bodywork too much. He's got himself a little bit of left side damage. You see the car crabbing a little bit as he goes into right-hand corners. But they don't need to make another pit stop. This is the scariest part about it. Neither of these drivers need to make a second pit stop. They are within that pit window to go to the flag now from here. So these guys could still finish 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's possible. I think, though, that damage to the race car is going to play a factor. Kind of waiting to find out what his lap times are going to be. You've also got Rosselli apologizing to Pino because for not being aware of him on the track, so that's all good. So it sounds like it calmed down a little bit.
So let's run through your top 5 momentarily. Sean Lees has spun it, almost spun it there in the first position in the number 10 car. He's got himself the race lead for the time being, but he is being caught by Andy Kerstov in the number 9 car very, very quickly. Sergei Solotov is in the 3rd position. David Ward in 4th. Rodrigo Massin is in 5th. For those of you who are just tuning in, we have had ourselves a crazy 15 minutes. as it looked as though we were going to have ourselves a clear 1-2 finish for Anthony Rossley and João Pinot, and then Rossley getting spinning as he's trying to make his way through the Mustang traffic. João Pinot just collecting and turning him onto his roof. Both drivers are back in the race, but what it's meant is they are now way down the field, and both are having to struggle to try and gain up some time.
And Will, it's time to ask you a question. If you're Sean Lees and you've been gifted the lead like that, and that's not where he expected to be at this point during the race. So how is he feeling right now? Is he nervous? Is he going to settle in, or because he can feel the pressure from Andy Crisciatorti. Boy, that last name is something to, wow. Anyway, he feels the pressure from the back from Andy Kay, and how does he feel about that right now?
Well, the fact that Andy Kirchhoff closed about a second in that last lap, and he's got himself Sergei Solotov right behind him, David Ward in third, and you are having a look at the big battle going on for second, third and fourth position on the racetrack. I remember the first time I ever led a race, and I also remember the first time I led a very big race like this. And all of a sudden you start sweating a little bit more, you start tensing up on that wheel a little bit more than you've been previously doing so. The most difficult thing is to just carry on running your lines, and you've been gifted the race lead because your spotters are telling you, your pit boards are telling you all that, but sometimes that's the last thing you want to see. You saw there Sergio just going down to the inside of Keristov holding his line well as they came out of turn number 16. David Ward right behind there. We got ourselves a nice three-way dogfight in the battle for second, third and fourth. Sean Lees, however, has lost himself, is actually gained 2 tenths of a second that last lap in the midst of all this dogfighting between the Daytona prototypes and Solid Rock, very close to the rear of Andy Kay there as they came through turn number 1. And if one of these drivers has an incident, it's going to be a miracle. As Keristov does spin it once again.
Oh, spins it out. Oh, there he is. No damage to his car. Self-spin is good.
That's not the first incident. Not the first incident.
Look again, once again, trying to get onto the oval. Too much throttle, and that car comes around on you. You have to be very, very careful right there. And that's definitely cost him.
And we also had Overgaard spinning as well. Just a moment ago, Stefan Overgaard in the number 7 machine in the Mustang division. He decided that he wanted to see how things were in the opposite direction. And Andy Kay, it's not the first time. Won't give him any discredit. It always seems to be like as he tries to put the power down, that number 9 Radical machine looking as though it is very, very squirty as he gets onto the power. And in fact, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he likes his car to be right on the ragged edge because he feels like he can get the most speed by really chucking it through the corners. And if you can do that, what it means in turn is that as you put the power on, you are going to have yourself often some snap oversteer. But I'll tell you who the biggest gainer of this is. David Ward, who had his own incident earlier on, is now going to be back into the 3rd position.
Yeah, we talked about David Ward earlier, how he's never out of the race. He's always the hard charger. So he's going to settle in, and he's going to keep after those positions. And now moving up to 3rd place, so he's just going to continue to pick away. And we see that often from David Ward here. So I also have to send a shout out to Andy Kay. Basically, the announcers have the right to, if they cannot pronounce your name, to make one up for you. So whatever your name happens to be today, but Andy Kay is about the best thing in the world.
Alternatively, you could just call him Andy Keristov.
Well, yeah, except for that's not even close. But hey, like I said, we can make one up for you.
Oh, shut up. Let's go back very quickly to the Mustang division. Evan Maillard is still your race leader. Dave Dealing is still right there behind. He saw Dealing there, actually, almost planting it into the wall, getting very sideways as he came out of turn number 9. As Andy Kay just had another moment there, that put him wide. And, there's a big traffic jam once again. He's got himself Sergei and Ward trying to go around the outside of Maillard, both being able to do so. Maillard just holding that inside line to perfection. He's still your race leader in the Mustang division. And G-Link has dropped back to about a second and a half behind. Kevin Parrish is sat in the 3rd position as Antonio A just going for a little bit of off-road driving there in his number 17 machine.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see that it looks like Evan Mallard has the driving ability on this more technical track and the setup today. David Gillick is not putting the pressure on him like we saw when he was in the lead and Evan Mallard was put in the chase. So it looks like in the straights too that Evan Mallard might have the advantage on top speed.
Last time by, Anthony Rossley, who's got himself damage to the left side of his car, substantial damage to the left side of his car, and crabbing quite a little bit, 4 seconds a lap faster than the car ahead of him, Rodrigo Masson, sat in the 5th position. We are going to have ourselves a great battle in a couple of laps, I'd say about 5 laps time between Rossley and Rodrigo as they come closer and closer together on the racetrack. Andy Kerstoff, by the way, has dropped back to now 20 seconds behind David Ward in the battle for the 3rd position. That just shows how costly mistakes here at Indy can be, because not only do you lose the time through spinning, but if you have to retake that traffic that you just overtake him and put everything on the line for, you're losing yourself even more time every time you do that.
Yeah, and we've seen that, you know, like you mentioned again, for Anthony Rosselli, he's really charging hard, but it's extremely difficult because he's got to make his way through all that traffic. As fast as he is, it still doesn't matter when you're pulling up behind somebody that's braking and there's no room to get around. You're just at their mercy until you get that opportunity. So, and with damage to his car, it's really amazing that he's been able to hold those lap times, and he's definitely starting to pull up on people. Looks like he's going to make a run at Rodrigo Masson here any moment.
Yeah, and Andy Kerstoff has made his pit stop, and he's come out ahead of Anthony Rossley. Not by much, it's literally just a couple of seconds on the racetrack, but Andy K has finally had enough of those tyres slipping and sliding underneath him. Had his service, but this just shows if Kerstoff was 28 seconds behind the race leader when he came in, Rossley still has a lot of work to do if he's going to try and get himself back into the podium hunt. As David Ward in the number 8 machine, he just overtook there Sergei Stolotov in the battle for the 2nd position. A beautiful pass down the inside of turn number 15. Held it nicely coming through 16, back onto the front straightaway, past the famous shard of bricks as they turn number 1. So David Ward is now back up into the 2nd position and just over 5 seconds behind the race lead.
Well, he's a good example of what you can do because he's been back as much as 10th position earlier on in the race, and now he's battling up there. He's in 2nd position and battling for 2nd. So it's, like I say, it's early in the race and anything can happen on this track, especially with the unanticipatable traffic, the Mustangs, other things going on the track. So he's a great example of what you can do if you just keep up on the wheel and just keep driving.
I'll ask you, Dor, how long is it going to be early in the race for, seeing we're over halfway past now?
Well, moving on. Let's talk about how our race leader's doing up front.
Sean Lees currently is your race leader in the number 10 car. Looks like he settled down over the last couple of laps, built that gap up to just over, let's have a look at see what the time is, just over 6 seconds now as David Ward and Sergei Stolotov were fighting for position, managing to eke out that gap just a little bit. I think though that David Ward might start closing that gap up now he's into clean air. They have got themselves a couple of Mustang drivers ahead of him. They'll probably count down into turn number 6.
So you think that's 6 second gap is doable by David Ward?
Not necessarily by itself, but let's not forget these drivers still are going to have to make a pit stop. And when they do so, it's so Evan Malia just scraping the wall there, coming out of turn number 16. Not sure how much damage he's going to get to that, but he did just scrape that safer barrier just barely with his right hand side as he was trying to get out of the way of Anthony Rossley, fast charging behind Andy Kerstoff. I think David Ward can close the gap, but not 6 seconds. He's going to have to rely on pit stops to help him out as well.
Once again, you're seeing a lot of traffic going on just before they enter the oval. Really, a lot of cars getting backed up in that area consistently.
I'll tell you what, Andy K almost spun it again, got completely sideways. And when I say sideways, he's pointing 90 degrees to where he should have been going. Anthony Rossley had to get completely onto the brakes to avoid ramming into the side of that number 9 Radicals machine. And these two guys are teammates, let's not forget. So Rossley is going to give himself probably a little bit more respect than he would give other drivers, because the last thing you ever want to do is take out your own teammate, as you and I have been in a couple of scraps here and there, haven't we, Doyle?
Oh, absolutely. And generally you end up taking everybody out, and it's funny. But in this particular case, I don't think they're going to laugh if that happens.
Just for the record, I'd like to point out here that if you'd like to go to iRacing.com and compare the CPIs of myself and Doyle, it will just paint the entire picture. But
you actually have to get out on a track before you can actually do something there. But anyway, moving on.
Meanwhile, we are approaching just over 50 minutes of this race here today. The Grand Am Premier Series on Glacier TV. No love lost between myself and Doyle. Sean Lees is your race leader. David Ward dropped back a further 0.3 of a second. That last lap sat in second position in the number 8 Team Afterburn machine. Sergei Solotov is sat in the 3rd position. Rodrigo Masson in the number 25 car is in 4th. Andy Kershkov is in 5th. Anthony Rossley, after being on his rear in pit lane and everything else, is sat in the 6th position. And then you've got yourself Glenn Tidman in 7th, João Pinot in 8th, William Green in 9th, and Antonio Acanado in 10th. In your Ford Mustang division, your top 5, Evan Meliard is in 1st, Dave Geeling still close behind in 2nd, Kevin Parrish in 3rd, Frank C in 4th, and Jonathan Fuller rounding out your top 5.
And Evan Mallard in the Mustang division is doing an excellent job of keeping a lot of air between Dave Geeling and himself. So unlike way earlier in the race when they were battling it out, right now it looks like Evan Mallard is just kind of driving very comfortably right there, keeping that gap extended, and David Geeling out of passing range.
I think that Rossley has got bored of seeing the rear spoiler of his teammate, and he's closing very, very rapidly on Andy Kersthoff in that number 9 machine. And I tell you what, Kersthoff really doesn't want to let Rossley go past, because I think that this is currently his best shot of getting himself a strong top 5 finish. And if Rossley can get past, I think he will just drive away into the sunset from him. I have to say, not only Rossley but João Pinot as well. Great driving by these two, especially as João Pinot's got himself some huge front damage. Rossley some huge rear, some left side damage. You see Rossley there taking the position for Andy Kersthoff. Beautiful manoeuvre down into turn number 1, and I think Andy K just got out of the way there, because you know what, Bill, sometimes it is faster just to let the car go ahead of you rather than having to defend your line every other corner.
Well, especially if you know the car in front of you is ahead. I think Anthony Rosselli said, "Hey, I love you, man, but get out of the way," because he's definitely, look at how that gap is just instantaneous that he opened up on his teammate there. So they played nice. Now it's time for him to try to make his way up to the front.
I have to ask you, I have to say though, I've never seen Andy K just get out of the way of anyone. I think that that number 9 machine does also have his own agenda, and we just had Rodrigo Mason from the 4th position went off pretty much exactly the same as Pierre Bourdais, but just a big heavy impact there into the turn 6 wall. His day is going to be done. If you've seen the replay coming up on your screen momentarily, and it surprises me, because I never really expected that to be a huge point where you'd go off from the racetrack. But Mason, no cars around him, just getting it wide off that curb. He tried turning it, he slowed it down, but just spun that car into that safer barrier.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. We'll see if he can get repairs to that car and get back out there. But it just goes to show you this is an extremely technical track. Braking and throttle control are absolutely key.
Jason Dunnington coming out of pit lane, currently scored 9 laps down. Once again, having himself a tough day. And I tell you what, that last lap with Andy K just moving out of the way and Mason slamming it into that wall, Rosselli's just made up 2 positions in 1 lap. He's now up into the 4th position.
Yeah, and he's back a little ways, but I think he's trying to make up that gap. And then you have Andy K over there. I think maybe his agenda that you talked about earlier was, all right, I'm going to let Anthony go by, and I'm going to let him clear the path. So, people are moving out of the way, and that gives Andy K more of a clear shot, because once he's cleared the traffic, he can just shoot right through there.
And it's always the case in motorsports that there's one or two drivers, if you see them coming up in your rearview mirror, you do just pull out of the way. Senna is the most famous for it in Formula 1. Coming up with lap traffic, you'd almost see drivers running into the grass to get out of his way. The same is applied to, you know, people like Will Power on the road courses in the IndyCar, in the NASCAR, you see it every so often. I think that driver in the series is Rosselli. He's got that respect amongst the drivers. Everyone knows him, everyone fears him as a competitor, but everyone respects him as well. So they're not going to make his life too difficult if they don't have to.
Yeah, and you do see that in probably every race. There's 3 or 4 drivers that everybody knows are faster, so you know you can race them for a little while, but you know eventually, you know, they're just fast, and you know there's not much you can do about it. Look at I wanted to take note of David Ward, who's closed down 3 seconds of that initial 6-second gap on Sean Lees, followed closely by Sergei Slatov, who's right on him, moving up. So that second and third place battle is definitely moving forward on Sean Lees. So any mistakes by Sean Lees, and he could find himself with somebody knocking on his door.
And right now, the best thing that Ward and Slatov can do is pretty much just get themselves from nose to tail and just, you know, drive almost together around the racetrack, because every time they're battling and every time one of them's having to make his defensive tyres, they're going to lose quite a lot of time. We're starting to think that Sean Lees' tyres have just gone off like cliff, and we'll get Yoni Backman involved in this momentarily. He's our resident technical expert for all things cars. Yoni, we're coming up towards the sequence of pit stops, but for Sean Lees, it looks as though his grip's completely gone. How is that going to affect the handling of this car before he can finally make that trip down towards pit lane?
Well, it widely depends on how he has driven his car so far, plus how he has set up his car. If his car is too loose, which causes him to slide just a tiny bit of slide, like let's say every lap, one corner, you get a slide, just a tiny slide, you just correct it, no problem. But what happens is you get extra couple of degrees, extra heat on your tires, and when you get above a certain temperature, you all of a sudden you might as well be in a hockey ring when you get up to a certain temperature. After that, once your rear tires especially go above a certain temperature and then they start to lose the grip dramatically, and you're sliding all over the place, then you need a good 1 or 2 slower laps. I mean, it doesn't have to be that much slower time-wise, but you have to be far more gentle on the throttle coming out of the corners, just to cool those tires that extra few degrees, just to get the grip back.
And David Ward has closed that gap now to less than 2 seconds as they're coming down towards the end of this lap. And I have to say, we expect Lees to come down pit road at some point too. He really is losing himself a lot of time. He's got to remember, all these other drivers are going to have to, well, these top 3 drivers still have to make a pit stop. Anthony Rosselli is going to close every single lap that Sean Lees is staying out on these worn tyres. Right now, the best he can do is come down pit lane, hopes he gets himself a little bit clear traffic, and then get back into the racing group. Because right now, all he's doing is throwing away that lead and also putting him back into the clutches of Anthony Rosselli in 4th.
Yeah, and David Ward, I mean, he can see it right now. I mean, he's staring right at the back wing of Sean Lee. So knowing what kind of competitor he is, he really wants to get past him if he can. And he's even opening up a little bit of a gap on Sergey. So, you know, he's pretty hungry right now. So we'll see how long it takes. I think you're right. The best thing Sean Lees can do is get off the track, get some tires, get some fuel, and get back out there.
1 hour in to the Grand Slam Premier Series race here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, brought to you by Glacier TV. Will Vincent, Doyle Johnson in the booth, along with Rob Sutherland and Yoni Backman as well. Sean Lees is still your race leader. However, David Ward really is catching him in the battle for the race lead. These top 3 drivers of Sean Lees, David Ward and Sergei Solovyov, have still got to make themselves their pit stop here in this race. Anthony Rosselli sat in the 4th position, bringing himself back into the hunt after that huge moment earlier on when he's turned upside down onto his roof. Andy Kerstock is sat in the 5th position, João Pinto in 6th, Glenn Tidman in 7th, Antonio Hayes. David Ward comes down pit road, so he's not going to lead a lap here today. And you see there, he's coming down pit road. That is going to drop him back possibly down into third. He's definitely into third. Be interesting to see where he comes out ahead of Rossley, if indeed he does so.
I find that very interesting that Sean Lees is still not pitting. His lap times are deteriorating. He's running into traffic, and he's going to choose to lead as many laps as he can. But I'm not so sure he's going to be able to hold on to that.
Very quickly, while David Ward is sat in pit lane, Evan Maillard is your race leader in the Ford Mustang division. Dave Geelink in second, Kevin Paris in third, Frank Cominetto in fourth, and Jonathan Fuller rounding out your top five as David Ward comes out of his pit box. Only a short drive before he can get back onto the gas. And Anthony Rossley, he can smell the blood now. He is coming through turn number one. David Ward is only about 4 seconds ahead of him. And this is going to become very interesting on the racetrack now as Rossley really is close. You can see David Ward. In fact, that gap is only 2.5 seconds as they come through turn number 5 and 6. But David Ward, he's got himself those fresh tyres for these next couple of laps. He really, really has to use them.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to find out. I mean, statistics say that it's inevitable that Anthony Rosselli is going to catch David Ward at some point in time. But like you said, having the new tires, but being a little bit heavier on fuel, we'll see how long that takes. But Anthony Rosselli definitely can smell that coming up third place and looking up to try to get back to the lead. João Pinho, however, is not faring quite as well, and he's number 6 slot, but I think he has a little more damage to his car than Anthony Rosselli did. And I'm not sure how that's possible since he was on his roof, but it looks that way.
And I have to say, with João Pinho's car, he got front damage. And when you consider the way the air flows over the race car, that air, those front spoilers are designed to shape the air all the way over the race car. And when you consider the fact that that's the bit that's got the most damage to Pinho's car, that air is going to be completely mangled up. And whereas Rossley's only got side damage, it's only going to affect part of that airflow and also the downforce to go with it. For Pinho, it's all the way from the second that air hits the front, and that's what's really costing him a lot more time.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because he was definitely the innocent victim of that particular exchange. But he's still racing well. He's still on the lead lap. So we'll see what happens in the end. Andy Kay is in front of him, and, so we'll see if he can catch up with that. Meanwhile, the Mustangs, though, Will, I'm a little shocked that Dave Gillick is not putting a lot of pressure on Evan Mallard.
Pit stop, still got a couple of laps to go for these drivers before they make their pit stop. Dave Gillick thinking, can he just save his tyres for a little bit, hope that Mallard hits before him, and then he can do a couple of Sebastian Vettel-style hot laps. Then that would possibly give him the opportunity to close that gap. Have a look at Sean Lees. He stays out on the track once again. What are you doing, Sean Lees? You're really going to put yourself on the back foot here, because if you're not careful, not only are you going to use the position to Rossley, but perhaps also to Andy Kay as well. So I really think Sean Lees really is making a bad decision here, losing time all over the place. His last lap was 1 minute 37.876. Andy Kerristoff is actually running a little bit slower than him at the moment, but Anthony Rossley running a full 2 seconds a lap faster.
Yeah, it is a head scratch as to why he's continuing to be out there. It may be just a matter of, hey, I want to lead some laps this race. Maybe he's feeling it's inevitable to these guys catching, but that's an interesting pit strategy that he's on, and we'll see if it plays out for him. But mathematically, it doesn't seem like it will.
Ward just overtaking some of the Mustangs, so they go through into turn number 1. And I don't know, maybe Sean Lees just wasn't, he was on a very specific strategy, wanted to save something for the end of the race. But at this point in time, we see it in this modern era with tyre temperatures and falling off the cliffs. Anyone who's watched a Formula 1 race, a Grand Am race, as Sergei Solotov actually is off track there in a number 15 car, so he's lost himself quite a bit of time to the rear of Sean Lees. That's going to really affect his chances to get himself a podium towards the end of this race, as he was setting himself up for a great finish. But I don't know what it is with Sean Lees. I mean, we see, as soon as you fall off that cliff, the best thing you can do is pit. And once again, he's put 40 laps in the book. We're an hour 5 minutes into this race, and Sean Lees stays out.
That's really interesting too, and Sergey managed to get in the grass there and kind of mow the lawn for a few minutes, but he was able to get back on the track and get back into the race. So I'm not sure exactly what sent him off the track right there, but he seems to have recovered very well. Yeah, you're right about Sean Lees. That's a mystery.
Just having a look back through the rest of your Mustang field, Kevin Parrish in the number 6 car is doing a great job in that 3rd position. I think he knew from day one that he wasn't going to be able to really challenge with Maillard and Geeling, especially where he started in the race. We talked about how Parrish has gained 5 spots since the start of this race. He's still sat in that 3rd position, and he's built himself a huge gap over Frank Covinato sat in the 4th position, but great driving by Parrish at the moment.
Yeah, and he's got a real comfortable position. He's not getting a lot of pressure from behind. He's running, it looks like about 2 seconds a lap faster than the 4th place driver, so it looks like he's just kind of comfortable riding there. Just don't make any mistakes. Just, run your race. It looks like he'll be okay. Jason Dunnington looks like he's pitting right here.
Again, and let's not forget, he is numerous laps down. And in 3 weeks' time, we'll be back here for the Grand Am Premier Series. 90 minutes of the Glen. We were there last week for the Classic Boot layout. Next week, we're going to the NASCAR version, the Cup layout. And Doyle, you've driven on that Cup track a couple of times before. Very, very, very fast there. Talk about speed differential here, it's going to multiply dramatically at the Glen in 3 weeks' time.
Oh, absolutely. For both cars, you're going to see a lot more top speed and a lot of overtaking there, but yeah, the pace is going to be considerably faster. So that means that for the Mustangs especially, the braking on some of those corners where you're going from almost completely topped out to slowing down through the carousel and then coming into that next corner is going to play into it heavily, but the DPs, you'll see them just go flying by the Mustangs in that back stretch area there, so it should be quite exciting.
We noticed that Sean Lees there tried to come down pit road, but perhaps missed the pit entry. We're keeping an eye just to see whether or not he actually has enough fuel to go to the end of the lap. He's still got about half the lap left to go, as we had ourselves another moment with Evan Maillard and Dave Geeling. Just having a look to see what happened. Both those drivers are still circulating on the racetrack. But it looks like DP traffic coming back into play again, and these Mustang drivers are just not happy with it. And you know what, at the end of the day, they're perfectly right to, because, first rule of racing, you've got to be able to complete a clean pass, not just put your car down the inside and hope everything goes well for you. Keeping an eye on Sean Lee coming down into turns number 14, then that flick right to 15. We expect him perhaps to come down pit road this time through turn number 16. Is he going to come in? He stays out.
Amazing.
You cannot run this entire race in one tank of fuel. I guarantee it. He has got to come down at some point. And even if he just takes a splash of gas and no tyres, I still don't think he's going to come out in the lead. Unless he's got the most amazing strategy ever. As he goes wide a little bit there, as he tries to undercut the Mustang. And I tell you what, if that Mustang was 2 foot further ahead of the racetrack, those two would have collided, because the line he took there was, I wouldn't say dangerous, but bold is the answer.
Yeah, and I'm amazed, unless he's planning on proving you and I and everybody else in the world wrong on his pit strategy. Either he's got the largest gas tank in the world and self-healing rubber, or something's going on here, or he's about ready to lose himself the lead.
David Ward, the fastest guy on track that last time by in the number 8 Team Afterburn machine. Ward, I'd say solid drive by the number 8 car. I can't be too biased, but he's really got himself back up into the hunt here.
Oh, absolutely, and it's kind of interesting because Anthony Rosselli is always, kind of dominant everywhere he goes, and David Ward is, having none of that, and Anthony Rosselli might be just using David Ward. They might, like you said earlier, time to work together so we can both get up to the front of the pack here. But David Ward holding his own, fastest lap, and he's got the hammer down and really trying to make some time on Sergey.
Sean Lees is off. Sean Lees is off in the number 10 machine, and this could allow Sergey Solotov to get a lot closer. Surely you've got to come down and pit road at some point, Sean Lees, but you stay out once again. Those tyres really must be hexagons or something by now. But yeah, I was talking to David again, I talk a lot to a lot of drivers, but I was talking to David this morning, and he was umming and ahhing whether or not he was going to race the after IndyCar Series at Barber Motorsports Park or race here in the Grand Am Premier Series. And he chose the Grand Am Premier Series. I have to say, he's done himself a great job. For all of you who have tuned in to try and see the Afterburn IndyCar Series, unfortunately, we are unable to bring in that broadcast today. We'll be back with the Afterburn IndyCar Series next week for the Indy Grand Prix of Zandvoort. That will be at 5 p.m. GMT on Glacier TV.
I'm still just floored. I'm not even sure what to say about this, but Sean Lee's, it's obvious his tires are definitely worn. He continues to stay out. He's losing traction consistently. But yet, he has no eye on that pit lane.
Nope. And we'll bring in once again our resident technical expert, Yoni Ratman. Yoni, these cars really cannot do a full race in one tank. The amount of time that Sean Lees is losing, even if he does the splash of gas and doesn't take tyres, he's still going to come out, by the look of it, behind Ward and Rosselli.
Yeah, I've been listening and watching the last 15 minutes, and I haven't got the slightest idea why on earth would he choose such a strategy. I mean, naturally, you know, if you start with a full tank of fuel, you know how much you're going to have to fill up, and it's been like a good 20 minutes already, which or even more, where he would have had enough capacity in the fuel tank to get that splash and get fresh tires on and come back on the track with a fresh rubber, but yet he manages to, yet he chooses just lap after lap to just lose time rather than getting those fresh tires on. I have no idea why he chooses to drop down into. I would say, in fact, there's so far the pit stops have been about 13 to 15 seconds, so he will be behind Rosselli definitely, but Andy Kay is not that far behind. If something goes wrong in the pits.
And yeah, let's talk about Andy Kerstoff. He looks as though he's managed to bounce back after those incidents early on in the race in the number 9 Radicals machine. And just having a look through his last lap times, they really have settled down. His last 10 laps or so, yeah, his last 10 laps have all been within about a second of each other, so a lot better consistency from Kerstoff since that pit stop.
Okay, we have a car off the track here.
And it's not Sean Lees. Sean Lees continues once again, and that was Jason Donington. Donington's really had himself some difficult races these past couple of weeks, and I think he's really going to appreciate that 3-week break to get himself back into gear as we come back to Watkins Glen for the second of our races in New York in the space of a month. Really does need to sort that out. And I tell you what, Pierre Bourdon, he's managed to get himself back onto the racetrack in that number 20 machine. He's got himself all sorts of crumples on his front spoiler in that beautiful renowned charge number 20 machine. But he unfortunately didn't have access to Audi's pit crew. And he's lost himself about 15 minutes on the racetrack.
15 minutes. Well, he could probably recover that any minute now.
You never know.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Pierre Bourdon. I do race, in fact, I don't always race with Pierre Bourdon. I do race with Pierre Bourdon, and I call a lot of races that he's in every week in the Afterburn IndyCar Series. And, you know, he's one of those drivers that will never give up. He's got a great heart on him in that number 20 car, and even when things are going against him, even when he's not having a good day, that Eastern Canada club driver, you know, always expect him to at least take the checkered flag, and it looks like that's what his aim is for the rest of this race here today.
Oh yeah, he's definitely the Rudy of racing out here.
Solotof's gone off. Solotof's just gone off there. Went very long. And I tell you what, it looks like he caught it back on the apex as well. So I was surprised he didn't have to get himself a slow down penalty, but he was very close to having to slow down a second time. But both these drivers really are struggling now, and we're keeping an eye on pit road. But again, Sean Lees doesn't come past. In fact, he's very... I tell you what, Sean Lees was coasting. He wasn't really putting that throttle on that quickly. I'm not sure whether Lees is trying to save fuel.
Boy, it's just... can't even imagine it. And then you got Sergey over there. It looks like where he went off the track, it looks similar to where he went off the track before. I think he's kind of struggling with a couple of those corners out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I think Solotov, you know, his tyres have also gone. I'm just having a quick look at the fuel mileage for this race. You see, I get 43.5 laps on a full tank of fuel normally. These guys are on lap 47. They've still got themselves 15 minutes to go, so that's done about 9 laps. I really don't think he could do that. I mean, he could prove me wrong, but I would be astounded if Sean Lees managed to bring this home in the first position. I tell you what, though, Anthony Rossi is caught right up to the rear of David Ward in the battle for third position. We expect these two drivers to perhaps take race lead and second position once those two drivers come down to pit lane. And let's not forget, though, Rossi might have a fast car, but he's still got that left side damage, and what that's going to mean is going to be very difficult for him to try and outbrake David Ward.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're seeing here. He's really fast, and he's definitely got some good technique. But David Ward is an excellent driver. So, you know, we're going to see how long this pressure lasts. But even if Rosselli does manage to get by David Ward, I don't believe will give it up, and I think we're going to see it again. I think this battle is probably going to be on until either one of them makes a horrible mistake or the race goes to the end.
And I tell you, I've got himself a bit of Mustang traffic ahead of him. I think that is going to be Rosselli's best bet. You see there, he's looking down to the inside. Close, but not quite close enough. I think if he had a perfectly functioning car, he would have been a lot better there. Lost himself, nothing there behind the Mustang. In fact, got himself a bit of a better run for that corner. Going back through the rest of your Mustang film momentarily, Frank Cavanato, we haven't talked about him. He sat in the 4th position. Got himself a nice gap to Jonathan Fuller in 5th. And it looks as though, unlike Watkins Glen last week, these Mustangs have got themselves a lot more spread out. And I have to say, do you think that's because of the rate at which the Mustangs are coming up behind these? The Rileys coming up behind the Mustangs, which is just causing the Mustangs to not have any momentum at all on this track?
Well, you've got that, and you've got that technical.
And David Ward's gone long. He's lost himself the 2nd position in this race. He's dropped back behind Rosselli. And now Rosselli pretty much, he is going to get himself back up, perhaps into the race lead once these pit stops sort themselves out. Just to clarify, that is 3rd position, not 2nd. That just came up wrong in my screen. I would apologise for that. Sergei Solotov is still sat in the 2nd position. But keeping an eye on Sean Lees, is he going to do it this time? No, he's not. But, I mean, we'll get him on board on one of these trades, but really it's very slow. And what we're going to do, I'll compare his straight line speed coming down into turn number 1. He is hitting 168 miles an hour. Now we'll wait for David Ward, because he's the driver. He's probably got the best functioning car at the moment out of these top 4, because Rosselli's still got himself, you know, all that damage to his left side. But David Ward, as he's coming down into turn number 1, he is only about 3 miles an hour faster. But Lees is short shifting. We've got it from our back of house team that Sean Lees is short shifting dramatically. The gap between Rosselli and Lees is less than 20 seconds on the track. You see Rosselli having to do another of those 3 wide darts out of turn number 4. I think he always had one of those crazy flashbacks. But it looks like that Sean Lees is shifting and also using higher gears through the corners, and I'm going to call him this every time I talk to him. Our technical expert, Joni Backman, I feel like TNT Racing when I say this, but our technical expert, Joni Backman, saving fuel in these cars, using that higher gear, keeping it out of that peak rev area. I mean, how much fuel can you save over a 90-lap race, in all honesty?
I honestly cannot believe that someone would actually be able to do it. I mean, we've seen these guys in the Rileys pitting normally about 65 to 70 minutes into the race, and we're currently 80 minutes into the... Yeah, now Sean Lee's pulling in the pits. I was just about to say, there's no way they're going to get able to save like 20 minutes of fuel. Last time I had a full tank of fuel, I short shifted through the whole session, and I used bigger gears through corners, just not to get that extra rev to the engine. Plus, I used maximum 60% throttle during the straights. I lost 2 to 3 seconds a lap, and I still was able to push it only like just above 5 minutes of extra fuel window. So I was just about to say that if he would have stayed out, that would have been a suicide.
So Sergei Solotov takes the race lead momentarily. I'll tell you what though, Solotov's loss is now less than 10 seconds ahead of Anthony Rosselli. So the way it carries on, even if Solotov does manage to take it to the end, he really has not got himself that much of a chance of taking this race victory. He probably will lead a lap here today. Just to compare laps to minutes, and about 5 minutes is about 3 laps and perhaps a couple of feet. Sean Lees comes out in the 4th position, so it looks as though he's managed to gain himself a bit of ground here and there. He is ahead of Andy Kersthoff, so that was one of the things we were keeping an eye out, but he is way behind Anthony Rosselli and also David Ward.
Yeah, and that's the question. Do you think Anthony Rosselli has enough time to catch Sergei at this point, based on their lap times?
Well, Sergei pretty much is doomed to either come in pit lane. If he doesn't, the speed that he's going to have to travel is he gets right up behind the Mustang there, almost running into the rear of him. If he doesn't come in, and indeed he's looking down to the inside, nope, he stays out for another lap. Even if he stays out on the racetrack, I mean, Solotov's last lap was a 1 minute 39.8. As he comes past the stripe again, this time by, his lap time is a 1 minute 39.9. Anthony Rosselli's last lap is Rosselli back down pit road. Rosselli is back down pit road, so he didn't have enough fuel after his incident. Maybe he got his maths wrong, but this is going to give the race lead overall back, perhaps, to David Ward.
Yeah, and I have to say, that doesn't make any sense, because his incident occurred in about, was it like 25 to 30 minutes into this race? And these guys were able to push it to 80 minutes with full tank of fuel, and Rosselli had to do, he went to the pits at 25th minute, so he did like 55-minute run, and now he's back in the pits. That doesn't make any sense.
He must have taken short fuel to get out there and try to make up some time.
Or
bad gamble.
Or maybe he thought that he wouldn't be able to have the speed on his car as he thought he would, and he thought that with that less fuel, he would have been able to get it to the end of the race. I think that Rosselli was probably a bit shocked at how fast he could get that car around the race course. And, you know, we talked about how some of these guys are short shifting. Sergei Solotov actually went off track again in that number 15 machine. We talked about guys short shifting, not getting on the power is late. All those things would have possibly contributed to Rosselli being able to complete, you know, another 3 or 4 laps here on that tank of fuel. The fact he was so fast, in fact, he's been one of the fastest lappers of the race despite his car being bent out in many shapes and sizes. Perhaps that meant was the reason why he couldn't make it to the end. As I believe we see a car coming down pit road, that is Sergei Solotov in the number 15 car. So David Ward will go into the lead of this race, and we've got ourselves less than 10 minutes here to go here.
And the question is, did David Ward take everything that he needed to finish this race, or are we going to see him coming down pit road too? Because that's 2 out of the 3 that we thought were going to be up front have now pitted, so they obviously did not take enough fuel in their last pit stop. David Ward's probably a happy camper right about now.
I'll tell you what, he would be a very happy camper, because let's not forget, he dropped all the way back into the 10th position in the first 15 minutes of this race, and he, in that number 8 Team Afterburn Pink machine, is currently your race leader with less than 10 minutes to go here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Spike course. Sergei Solotov comes back out onto the racetrack, and he is behind Anthony Rosselli, who has made himself a second pit stop. So a slow stop there for Solotov, and Rosselli looks as though he is still going to be classified, perhaps, with a top 3 finish.
I actually have commented on that. Actually, Sean Lees and Sergei Solotov were the equal with the fastest pit stop there is, with a 3.5 seconds. So it was only a splash with no tires.
Yeah, so I have to interrupt you there, Yoni. Andy Kersthoff is really close behind Sean Lees. This is potentially the battle for the second position. Andy Kersthoff looking down to the inside, not quite close enough. Sean Lees holds on. He went wide there a couple of corners ago. That allowed Andy Kersthoff to get right up to the rear of him. And Kersthoff now looking to charge down in the closing moments here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have got ourselves 5 minutes left to go. And Kersthoff is howling Sean Lees as they go through turns number 14. now, and then they'll flick it into turn 15 in just a matter of seconds time, then into the final corner, turn 16. Kerstoff looking very racy late on here in the race.
Here comes Rosselli.
And Rosselli as well, a three-car battle, and this is going to be for second, third and fourth here at the end of the race. And no, don't do that, Kerstoff. You got yourself into the way of a Mustang as he's now looking to the outside, coming down into turn number 1. And it's going to be the bravest guy in the racetrack here. If he can hold the line here, that's a chance to get him down into the inside for the following corner. You see him just pinching him down there, but not quite close enough there, and having to back out the throttle just a little bit.
Rosselli takes a move on the inside. Oh!
That was brave there. Rosselli takes Kerstoff.
Oh.
We've got ourselves, and he's now going to try and take this. He's got good drive off of turn number 4, down to the inside into turn 5. Will Rosselli try and take the position? So close there as they come through 5.
Off into the position. He's going to make it stick.
And now Kerstoff is going to try and see whether he can do the same thing. Kerstoff there lost himself 2 positions in less than half a lap, and he is going to be livid in that number 9 machine.
You saw those great moves by Rosselli, just totally throwing everything to the wind and just basically powering his way right on the inside of those cars. So interesting driving right there. So we'll see if Andrew K can make it stick on this one too. He's right on the rear wing.
Yeah, so Kerstoff, you know, he's
spin!
Oh! That is going to be, yeah, game over, I think, and that's the only thing you can say about it.
Game over.
And I'm not sure whether there was a tap there. I'm just having a look back to have a look at the replay, see whether he did get tapped. It was the good old Bristol bump and run.
Yeah, he definitely got shoved out of the way right there, and so he's probably not real happy at this moment in time, but there's not much you can do about that. Rubbing is racing.
Rubbing is racing by some. I'm sure that Andy Kay is going to offer a couple of words of apologies in some ways, because he's not the type of driver to really want to bash people off the racetrack. But Sean Lees, I think he will have a few choice words towards the end of this race. Rosselli is, however, back into the 2nd position. Andy Kay is in 3rd. And Sean Lees in the number 10 car. That car is crabbing a lot now as he's coming down the front straightaway. Yeah, it's been in turn number 2 as well. And so Sean Lees, he's just fallen all the way off the racetrack again, going wide in turn number 1, almost running over João Pinot. And then as he comes back onto the racetrack, trying to turn it to left, he knows he's going to get himself a penalty, gets it back onto the racetrack, and just absolutely clobbers João Pinot in the number 6 machine. And wow.
It's definitely getting dicey here towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and João Pinot is now out of the race. And that is going to be heartbreaking for Pinot, because, you know, for one moment he thought he could have not only taken the race lead, but pretty much have cruised home to victory here today. And that got taken away by him by that unfortunate moment with himself and Rosselli on turn number 4 about half an hour into this race. Now his day pretty much is done completely. Sergei Solotov is actually back up into the 4th position. Your top 3 as we come to the white flag this time. No, I think we'll get ourselves one more lap to go. It's going to be close, however. It's going to be David Ward, your race leader, Anthony Rosselli in the 2nd position, and Andy Kerstoff is sat in the 3rd position, with Sergei Solotov in 4th. So Sean Lee's running out your top 5. In the Mustangs, it is Evan Maillard from Dave Dealing, from Kevin Parrish and Frank Cominato. Apologies to all the Mustang drivers who haven't had as much airtime as last week, but it's all been happening here in the DP class.
Yeah, the Mustang class has been pretty much the only excitement we had was the battle between Dave Gillick and Evan Mallard, but Evan Mallard was basically close to, set up a huge lead over Dave Gillick, so there really hasn't been a whole lot of action right here. I was beginning to think Dave Gillick's car might have taken some damage against the wall or something at some point in time, because he's really off the pace of Evan Mallard.
Yeah, and we're going to get the white flag the next time they come past the start-finish line. David Ward in the number 8 pink car, famous salmon pink colour, as he's coming past the start-finish line. He has got himself one more lap to go here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, coming down into turn number 1. And this is a driver about 15 minutes into this race was sat all the way down in the 10th position, managing to claw his way back out into the front. Anthony Rosselli is sat in second, possibly one of the most determined drivers I've ever seen from anyone in the Grand Am Premier Series. Andy Kerstov is in third, Sergei Solotov in fourth, Sean Lee's in the fifth position in the DP class. In fact, Sean Lee's going off track once again. Oh, very careful, he didn't spin it there, very lucky for him. Evan Malliard is still your race leader in the Mustang division, with Dave Geelink in second, dropping off dramatically from the rear of Malliard after the series of that pit stops. Kevin Parrish is in third, Frank Continento is in fourth, and Jonathan Fuller is in fifth. And you see there, David Ward there coming underneath the bridge down into turn number 10 for the final time. David Ward, who's seen him very often on Glacier TV broadcast in the Talkfink Racing Spring and Summer Super Cups in the Aspen IndyCar Series, working it now down into turn number 11, this 180-degree left-hander. So he's now into 13, only a couple of corners left to go here.
And excellent race by David Ward. Here it comes right here.
Just the final little flick of the Mustang there to come through. Coming down the front straightaway for the final time. The moment is here for David Ward. His first race in the Grand Am Premier Series. And he takes victory. I'm going to have to stop here because I've got myself a lump in my throat. Great to see Afterburn into winner's circle. And a great race there by David Ward.
Yeah, excellent job. Good race by David Ward. Very consistent racing to come through the pack, very patient, very calculating, excellent race, excellent job. Anthony Rosselli, another great charge after his unfortunate incidents, coming into second position. Excellent race by him. And Andy Cave with the unknown last name, great race by him as well.
Sergei Stolotov will take home fourth position in the Daytona prototype class. Sean Lees will come home. He's just coming out of the final corner now. He is going to take home fifth. Evan Malliard takes victory in the Mustang division with Dave Geelink just coming through now. He's taken the second spot here today. Kevin Parrish is in the third position. Frank Continento is in fourth. Jonathan Fuller in fifth. In fact, I believe we've still got ourselves a couple of drivers still come past the start-finish line. See Evan Malliard there trying his very best to spin that Mustang, but he's got too much car control. He's finding it almost impossible. So he's going to settle for Japanese drift driving.
Yeah, great race by those two up front today, and even Kevin Parrish, who sat in the third position pretty much the entire race today. But Evan Malliard and Dave Geelink seems to be the word of the day every time these two get together. So two excellent Mustang drivers right here. So it's been great to watch these guys, and for all you guys that are Mustang fans, you know how difficult these cars are to drive. It's nice to see these two drivers coming home 1 and 2.
So it looks as though pretty much everyone is coming past the start-finish line. So we are going to have our confirmed race results here today. As you see David Ward doing himself some donuts on the straightaway here in the Retribution in some ways reward, because he was actually leading his rookie Indy 500 race, the first time he's actually driven an official IndyCar Open race, and then he had to pit with 4 laps left to go, so a bit of retribution for him. But your final race results, first of all, in the Daytona Prototype Division, with a time of 1 hour, 31 minutes, 40.181 seconds, David Ward takes victory in a dramatic Daytona Prototype Division. Anthony Rosselli comes home in second in the number 3 machine. Andy Kerstov, the Radical teammate, is in third in the number 9 car. Sergei Solotov in fourth. Sean Lees in the 5th position. Only 5 cars finished on the lead lap. Glenn Tiddeman, a determined, strong drive by him to come home in 6th. Antonio Way comes home in the 7th position. William Green in 8th. João Pino in 9th. Wolfgang Wildenhauer in 10th. Scott Ford in 11th. Rodrigo Mason in 12th. Pierre Bourdon in 13th. Your retirees, Tom Kirk and Jason Dunnington, 13 and 18 laps behind the race leader, essentially. And then Evan Malliard takes home victory in the Ford Mustang division with Dave Geelink in 2nd. Kevin Parrish in 3rd. Frank Continento in 4th. Jonathan Fuller in 5th. Darren Jump in 6th. Chuck Johnson in 7th. Roman Walter in 8th. Carl Young in 9th, and Stefan Overgaard in 10th. And Doyle, we know we've been talking about names all race long. I'd just like to point out to everyone that Rubens Barrichello, Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo, some very big names in motorsport, they can never have their names pronounced properly. So if you can't get your name pronounced properly, in some ways it's almost a blessing, because look at how good they've all become.
Yeah, apparently in our series you should use it as a badge of honor. If your name is so awesome that we can't pronounce it, that's kudos to you.
And we'd like to take the opportunity to welcome in our race winner, Mr. David Ward. I remember talking to you about 9 o'clock this morning, where you're going to go over to Birmingham, Alabama, and race in the Off-Brand IndyCar Series. Then you decided to change your mind about midday, and now you've taken home race victory. How do you feel?
Over the moon, mate. That was awesome. I didn't even know I'd won it until like a couple of laps to go, because there was a battle. I was battling, I can't pronounce his name, but I was battling with him, and he came by. I was like, I can't keep with him. Oh well. And then I thought I could catch up with the other guys because I had a bit better pace, and I thought, I'll be on the podium. I'll be happy with it. And then everyone started pitting in front of me. It was just like, hang on a minute. Why am I in first place?
And early on in this race, you dropped all the way back into the 10th position with a couple of moments. I think it was in turn 4 especially, getting onto that banking for the first time here at Indy, that caught you out. How did it all change for you from then on, and how difficult was it to get your way back through the field?
Yeah, traffic and passing people around was really difficult. I had 1 or 2 places where I was a lot stronger than some of the other drivers, especially off turn 1 and then through the twisty bits. I managed to get down the inside of a few people there. Passing the Mustangs it's like tippy-toeing around. The speed differences just on the corners is phenomenal. It's like you can drive around the outside of them like no problem, but yeah, you've got to be careful. The spin at the beginning, I don't know. I was trying too hard, I think, to keep ahead of Andy and keep up with. I think it was Scott. Yeah, I made 2 mistakes, and yeah, not bad finish for 2 mistakes. Eh?
And so the last time you were at Indy, you were actually the driver who had to come down pit lane yourself with about 3 laps to go, as you were a bit short on fuel. Retribution for you?
Yeah, definitely. This is I've not had a win for a long time, so it's nice to get this, and yeah, it was good. Shame the other guys weren't in there, like Blake and that lot, but got to be in it to win it.
And seeing as you haven't had a win for a while, you can now have 30 seconds to thank all your friends at Mini Talk, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to all the guys at Mini Talk who are watching, Minicraft who prep the car for Time Attack, Evolve who do the tuning, and Federal Tyres who supply our tyres as well. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, and if you'd like to see David Ward in real life, he'll be at Brands Hatch, and otherwise the Afterburn guys will just put him back in his cage.
Yeah, we're going to be at the Far End Garage where the weighbridge is, so come and say hello. Car number 63 at Black Mini.
Moving on from David Ward, congratulations on your race win. I have to kind of stop talking about a teammate, otherwise people will start accusing me of bias. Andy, what's your name and where do you come from?
No comment. Lots of names. You pronounce your last name.
Kirschtorte.
Okay,
yeah.
We got that. Andy K will work.
Yeah, Andy K is cool.
You came home 3rd. Your radical teammate Anthony Rosselli came home in 2nd. Considering the day that you've had, I think that's going to be a great result for the 2 of you.
Well, Sean was just getting in the way, so I had to barge him out of the way first, and then I had room for 3rd.
I want to see...
Nice punt, by the way.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I mean, I didn't know that Sean hadn't taken tyres when he pitted. He didn't have much choice, I don't think, because he only took on a few gallons, so I didn't realise he was on old tyres. And I just put on the gas coming out the corner a bit earlier than him, and he didn't, and smack. But yeah, not bad. It's a horrible track for that car, I find. So I'm really pleased with a third, and nice to see Club England member Mr. Ward up there in the lead.
Yeah. I have to ask you a quick question here. How much swearing was there on the Radical TeamSpeak channel in that first half an hour of the race?
There wasn't any, actually. It was quite calm.
Despite your, let's take us through those moments. I know you had a couple in turn 4. I know that Rosselli had a big one in turn 4. Was it a bit of a compounding effect? Well, if you got those tyres heated up too much, that the car is just sliding about too much more, and that's what was causing the subsequent spins?
Well, no, I got a tap up the rear from Sergey. That sounds a bit wrong. I got smacked up the rear from Sergey, and it just made the rear a bit looser. So I just thought I'll pit. I had 5 seconds of damage optional, which I repaired, and it just seemed to stabilise it a little bit. And actually, I did the quickest laps that I could do later on in the race, so that was all right.
And I'm going to have to ask you, how difficult is it to patch up after a smash up the rear?
Excuse me?
I'm taking your words.
Jesus. Could you rephrase that a little bit?
How much damage could you repair to the rear of that car? Because obviously the bodywork on these Daytona prototypes, they are very light, and once you get them bent out of shape, is it difficult to get the grip back into that car, or is it damage limitation from then on in?
No, it's damage limitation. I mean, they used all the parts on AJ's car when he rolled it, so I didn't have any spare panels for the back, or any spare, rear parts, should we say?
And finally, on behalf of Rosselli, how much did you have to pay to get Audi's pit crew? Because seriously, he was back out on track within 2 minutes after being towed onto his roof.
Well, actually, we used Peugeot's pit crew. We've had them on board since since they left Le Mans, and yeah, they've been doing a good job since then.
3 weeks' time, we're back to the Glen on the Cup course. Going to be a very fast race. The Mustangs are going to play their own unique battle there. But how do you think Team Radicals is going to do then? And would you like to give a shout out to any of your boys?
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Pablo Lopez, who's had the weekend in Barcelona at the GT Academy. To Blake, who's been at Goodwood, made it through to the top 8 at the Red Bull event down there. And of course to everyone that's taken part in the race. From Frank, who's had a really good race in the Mustang today. AJ, considering his accidents, has done brilliantly to come in second. And thanks very much to SteelSeries.com.
And final question about Blake. I'm sure that if you were to get those 8 people onto iRacing, I'm sure Blake would have won hands down.
It's a different style of racing, isn't it? It's where incident points don't matter. And if you watched any of the streams, you'd see that there's a lot of pushing in a way like I did unintentionally on Sean. There's a lot of that intentionally, and I think that really affected Blake's performance because he's not that type of racer. But yeah, he's ordinarily, if they'd have used more of a real world sim, I think he'd have absolutely nailed it. But I think he did a great job anyway, to be fair.
Completely agree, and well done to Blakey. Normally you do see him in the Grand Am Premier Series. He was unfortunately unable to partake this weekend. You never know, he might make it back to Milton Keynes in time. We will find out. It is unfortunately now time for us to go. Anthony Rosselli will be very nervous on the next race here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as the gap is very close in the North American Endurance Championship. $250 iRacing dollars are up for grabs to whoever wins that, and Rosselli is really in the catbird seat to claim that money. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time for the Grand Am Premier Series from Watkins Glen Cup course. That will be a 90-minute race around the fastest racetrack the Grand Am Premier Series will see all season long. Coming up for you this week on Glacier TV, we have got ourselves the Talk Freak Racing Touring Car Championship, including a certain Mr. Andy Kay, which will be held at Phillip Island. That will be coming to you at 8:30 p.m. GMT on Tuesday. And then we've got ourselves the BigDogRacing.com Firecracker 150 at Bristol Motor Speedway. That is overnight on Glacier TV on Tuesday. The Trellet.net race will be held this week from Lanier Speedway, 180 laps on Thursday. That will be also at 6 p.m. GMT. The Talk Freak Racing Summer Super Cup next Saturday at Phillip Island, 7:30 GMT. And then the Afterburn IndyCar Series makes its rightful return back to Glacier TV after being punted out the way for 2 weeks. That will be held at Zandvoort, same time, at 5 p.m. GMT here on Glacier TV. Meanwhile, from myself, from Dora Johnson, from Rob Sutherland and Yoni Backman, everyone who works behind the scenes here at Glacier, we will see you all in 3 weeks' time at the Glen.